Good afternoon. For 4 News Now, I'm Rob King. Welcome to today's kxly-plus Daily Rundown, where I take you through some of the top local headlines and give an inside look as to what the 4 News Now team is working on today. We're starting off today ahead of a special report. Robyn Nance is taking a look at Spokane Police's behavioral health unit that rides along with officers. So we're going to go ahead and bring Robyn in, and she's going to tell us a little bit about it. Robyn, how are you?
Oh, hi. I'm great. How are you, Rob?
Good. So I know it's about the behavioral health unit, but why don't you just tell us what people can expect watching your special report tomorrow?
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't know that this even exists. So the behavioral health unit is made up of some Spokane police officers, Spokane Valley police officers, Spokane County sheriff's deputies, and some mental health workers, either from behavioral health or CHAZ, Frontier Behavioral Health. And they work together and are very specialized in the kind of calls that they get sent to. So it started about 3 years ago, and their unit is funded by some grants throughout the state. And basically, they are called to cases where there are people in mental health crisis, whether that be a mental health, some type of a breakdown, and or drugs are involved. But they specialize in these calls. They were called last year to almost 5,000 different calls. And the important thing to think about in all of this is, when a police officer is called out, they have to make some kind of reaction. They have to either, make an arrest, or then they, de-escalate the situation or something like that. And this specialized unit really focuses on giving these people more time, kind of helping them work through their issues. The goal really is to not criminalize mental health disorders. And this is a really great way that the city has found to address these situations where people are just in crisis and need something other than being thrown into jail or taken to a hospital.
Absolutely. And 5,000 a day, that's like a dozen calls like this a day that they respond to just in that year.
It is really something. And what I found is that just last year alone, in those almost 5,000 cases, 79% of them were handled without anybody going to jail or anybody going to the hospital. And a small portion of them were detained. Some of them had warrants that were not, that they needed to be addressed. And some of them, and I guess kind of important in this whole thing, is that there was no physical violence, that most of those people were just, put in handcuffs, taken away. A lot of times we are hearing more and more about, people in mental health crises who are, they have to be restrained, or they are, there's force used. And the real goal in this whole unit is to keep that from happening and to handle this in as humane a way as possible. And so what you're going to see in my special report, we get to hang out with a police officer who's a senior police officer with Spokane Police, and he is kind of a larger than life character. And his goal is to basically deal with these people and to do it in a very compassionate way. And his take on policing is very different than the way that a lot of police officers are trained. And he says that is training, and it's the way it has been, and he would like to see it change. And he really talks about compassion, but being realistic about what that looks like, in that, some of these people are in fact criminals. Some of them have warrants out for their arrest. Some of them are violent, but the majority of the people that he deals with are suffering from mental health disorders. And so he thinks that we have to approach it very differently than we have been in the past. And I think you could learn a whole lot about the approach and about just the outcomes. And it's really very impressive. At least that's what I took away from the whole thing.
Absolutely. And this seems to be more of a modern way of policing and getting people help, instead of just throwing everybody in jail. Let's try to solve some of those issues that people are dealing with. Robyn, I know one of the constraints of television is we're pressed for time often, having to get to commercial breaks. So your report is, going to be a couple minutes in length. You probably had to cut some things. So what was something that you wish could have been in your special report that you still want people to be aware of?
That's really important because so much of what we do is you have to just summarize and summarize and summarize because of time constraints. One of the things I wish I'd have been able to talk about was I asked this police officer, his name is Richie Plunkett. I asked him, what's the drawbacks in this and what's the hardest part of it? And there's a lot of hard parts in being a police officer, period. Sure. Much less than you deal with people in mental health crises. He says burnout, which it happens across the board, but that it's mentally exhausting to deal with people in crisis all the time. And you are not on your best behavior, but you are having to pull in all of these all this knowledge and all this when you have to keep calm and when you might be being attacked or the name calling and all kinds of things. It just really takes a toll, and that's part of the thing that I wish I had been able to talk about in the report, but I couldn't because there's so many other wonderful things that I had to try to get into the story. One of the things I forgot to mention is that a lot of times within these units, the behavioral health therapist is able to ride along with the police officers. In my case, we were not able to see that. We only rode along with Officer Plunkett. He has a mental health provider assigned to him once or twice a week, and there is a shortage right now, as in so many different jobs, a shortage of police officers, but a shortage of mental health providers too. So they're spread really thin, and that person was not able to be with us when we rode with Officer Plunkett. He has a background in social work, so he's kind of amazing in that he has a special, expertise in this. Sure. So he comes about things in a different way, but I really wish we would have been able to see a mental health provider riding along with an officer, because I think that is a really important part of this whole thing. It's an approach that they all work together. So while he can, with his computer, look up and say, oh, I recognize so-and-so, and this person has been trespassing at this place and this place, and he's, spent time in jail or whatever. They don't have the medical part of that. So police can't look at that. If there's a mental health provider riding with them, they have the accessibility to look in and say, oh, this person was released from the hospital in October, and they, this is how they were treated or whatever. So it's really important to have all those pieces fit together, working together. So the more information they have, the better that they can treat people and the better understanding they have as to where that person's coming from.
Absolutely. Well, it sounds really valuable and something that people should know is going on in their neighborhood as a way to help our community members. Robyn, you got to ride along with law enforcement. Did you respond to calls?
Well, we were sent to one call, but Officer Plunkett found quite a few others. So his cool deal is that he gets sent to a lot of the calls that when he's on duty that have to do with mental health crises. He also makes it a point to find people. So he's able to follow up with people that he's dealt with before. In fact, our very first thing, we got in the car and he said, okay, there's no calls right now. We will be diverted, I guarantee you. But right now, here's what I need to do. I got a call yesterday from a woman who was calling for me the day before, and I want to try to find her. So he went to all the places he knew that she had been before and that he thought she would be at. A lot of the people he deals with are homeless, but he kind of knows where they go. He knows where they hang out. He knows where they stay. He works very closely with all of the shelters and the hospitals and the mental health and substance abuse counselors. So our first call was that, like, it wasn't even a call, it was more of a follow-up. So he wanted to follow up with this lady. And then we ended up finding other people that he had dealt with in the past too. So then he stopped, he would talk to them, check in with them, ask them what they need, resources and whatever. It was really interesting because I had ridden with police officers before and it had not ever been like this. Before it was very, very reactive. I felt like his approach was very proactive. I'm going to, yes, check up, but I'm also going to see what's happening out there. And I'm going to in fact, we're driving through a parking lot and he's like, oh, there's somebody sitting on steps under a blanket somewhere that there is no trespass sign. He just stopped, started talking to this young man, found out about him, found out why he's where he is, where he needed to be. And it was a really impressive exchange in that, like, he showed real compassion for this. This kid was 20. He's like, it's 20, you're 20 years old. This is not a great place for you to be. How can I help you find somewhere else? And what can I get you for resources? And it was really cool, I thought.
Absolutely. And it's got to help with policing in general because you're making these connections in your community. So if you do respond to a criminal call, you may have, past knowledge of an individual involved. And so you just you embed yourself in the thread.
Totally. And what was also really interesting is he makes sure that everybody he deals with has his business card, and he gets calls from people all the time, from people he's helped and people that he, has made contact with. And he's like, yep, so-and-so calls me, so-and-so calls me. And he prefers it to be like that. In fact, he says that, another officer might stop Walter Plunkett. And he's like, I don't want to step on anybody's toes, but I also know that I can be of assistance and I can help. And you'll also hear from the sergeant in charge of the behavioral health unit with Spokane Police. And he really talks about, hey, our officers are mostly on a Band-Aid approach. Like we are going and we're basically throwing a Band-Aid on this and moving on to the next thing because we got 20 calls waiting for us. So he said this unit is very special in that it's not that Band-Aid. It is that follow-up. It's that, it's the triage, and it's the taking care of the situation, and then, hopefully sending somebody off with a better outcome than they would have had it just been an officer who was basically like just trying to get through the call.
Sure. Well, it sounds extremely important, Robyn. I look forward to watching it. When and what time will your special report air?
Yep. Tomorrow evening, so Thursday evening in the 6 o'clock newscast. Not exactly sure what time, but tune in for that, and I think you'll learn a lot. And, feel free to, bring comments, and I'm sure people will have lots of thoughts and questions. Because there is also, the question is, are we being too soft on crime by doing something like this? I hope, it'll be interesting to hear what people say. So feel free, Robyn@kxly.com is my email address. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Awesome. Yeah, please reach out. We do love hearing from our viewers. And Robyn, thank you for taking a couple minutes out of your day to speak with me. Just thank you. Appreciate your time.
I'll see you later.
See ya. And like Robyn said, you can watch her special report airing tomorrow night in 4 News Now at 6. It will also be up on our websites, kxly.com, and you can watch it on the KXLY Plus app following its conclusion. So we're going to move right along into the KXLY Plus Daily Rundown. Let's take a look at some of the top headlines of the day. We do have breaking news this morning as there's an update in the Bryan Kohberger case. He was indicted this morning by a grand jury facing 4 felony counts of first-degree murder for each of the victims in the Moscow murders case. In addition, there's also 1 burglary felony count for allegedly entering the home, the victim's home, as a burglar. So indicted by a grand jury. In the state of Idaho, prosecutors can present evidence at either a preliminary hearing or to a grand jury. The grand jury is a little more secretive process, and the preliminary hearing involves having witnesses. So the preliminary hearing was scheduled for June, but now that preliminary hearing is no longer necessary as the grand jury has indicted Kohberger. So now what happens is on Monday, there will be an arraignment where Kohberger is likely to enter into a not guilty plea. Following that, a trial date will be set, and the trial of the University of Idaho murders will begin. So again, that is breaking news this morning. And also, Natalie Grant is out in Moscow today to learn more about it. Also, breaking kind of overnight, we are getting election results in the Coeur d'Alene levy vote, as well as the Lakeland school districts. Lakeland and the Coeur d'Alene levy votes both passed. Coeur d'Alene was kind of the bigger one. It was $25 million, their supplemental levy, which accounts for 25% of their budget. Had it not passed, they would have been facing drastic cuts to programs like their music, their sports. But it did pass with 63% of the vote. It had previously failed, but that gives them time to sort of educate the community about how important something like this is. So it did pass. Also passing in Liberty Lake, the city council has voted to ultimately limit the library board's power as to what goes on their shelves in the libraries. In the decision made last night at a city council meeting, decided 4-3. The board of trustees can now initiate a book ban that has the city council having the final say as to whether or not that will be banned. There were people in public comments at the city council meeting on both sides saying, one side saying the Liberty Lake mayor should ultimately veto this, while the other side is saying there should be harsher restrictions on the library board. And Vanessa Perez is working to find out more in that as to how it will work. Bronte Sorotsky, she's got a fun one today. We're coming up on the 30th anniversary of Benny and June filming in Spokane. So a documentary is actually being made locally about the filming process, and they're looking for extras who participated in the movie. So if you are one of those, be sure to reach out. So with the 30th anniversary, Bronte speaking with the documentary filmmaker, and some local businesses are going to have some Benny and June themed deals and specials, so that's fun too. Peter Choi, he is out at Duncan Gardens today, where volunteers are looking to plant 33,000 plants for the summer. There is a fun theme this year, which Peter will reveal tonight. In addition, they are looking for more volunteers because 33,000 plants is obviously a lot, and they need help. So Peter will be finding out more about that. Let's close with a look outside. We've got another cloudy and warm one today. We're seeing possibly some isolated thunderstorm activity, but not as bad as yesterday. Colville could be getting the most of the rain today. These are the highs from around the region. You can see upper 70s, low 80s for Spokane and Coeur d'Alene. A little warmer down south in Lewiston and Tri-Cities, but the whole state of Washington is going to be feeling the heat as well. You can see it won't start cooling down until you get well into Montana. Looking ahead for the rest of the week as well. Wednesday, like I said, today is going to be cloudy and warm. It's going to be drying out a little bit tomorrow and warming up. We are still on track for some record heat Thursday and Friday. As you can see, the Lilac Festival also on Saturday, where we could be touching 90s for the first time this year. So thank you for joining the KXLY Plus Daily Rundown. Be sure to download KXLY Plus on your connected TVs. That's Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Roku. You can also download the 4 News Now mobile app to your phone, where you can turn on notifications and get the latest on breaking news in your community. Be sure to tune in tomorrow night, where Robyn Nance's special report on the behavioral health unit in the Spokane Police Department, when that will be airing, and see some of the good work that our law enforcement does in the community. So that's all I got for today. We'll have those stories and more coming up tonight at 5, but for now, live in studio, I'm Rob King for KXLY+.